Point Park Athletics accepts an invitation to a new conference. Men's and women's basketball continue their winning ways. The Penguins crack the code against the Kraken, and the Steelers play in post-blizzard Buffalo. 14 NFL teams begin their postseason push towards Las Vegas and the big game. And what surprised us in Super Wildcard Weekend, and what teams do we like moving forward? It's time to come on down to the Pioneer Sideline. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Pioneer Sideline for the spring semester. I'm your host, Natalia Hillen. Last week, Point Park University received a formal invitation to join the Mountain East Conference, a National Collegiate Athletic Association Division II league beginning in the fall of 2024. Pending Point Park's acceptance into the NCAA Division II membership process, the Pioneers will officially become members of the MEC in July of 2024. This means sports such as basketball, track and field, baseball, and softball will complete their seasons as members of the NAIA's River States Conference before transitioning to the MEC in the summer. Point Park would participate in 15 of the MEC's 23 sponsored sports, with plans to add 4 additional MEC sports, including men's and women's lacrosse, men's and women's tennis, and men's and women's wrestling over the next 2 years. This is a very exciting step for Point Park sports, and we can't wait to see it all unfold. Now switching gears over to the Point Park men's basketball team, as they had a lot of success this season so far. Overall, the men's team has been on a winning streak with 16 wins and only 1 loss, and in the RSC, 6 wins and 1 loss. The only team they took a loss to was IU Southeast on Saturday, January 6th, with a score of 82-77. The Pioneers have been playing matchups on the road the past few weeks and have had a 2-game RSC road stretch last Thursday and Saturday. On Thursday night, the Pioneers had a matchup against Oakland City and took home the win 87-83. It was a huge game for Jameson Smith because he hit a career high of 27 points to go over the 1,000 career points milestone. Congrats, Jameson. The game leader was Joe Valerie with 30 points and 12 rebounds. A huge play in the matchup was when Joe Valerie scored off an offensive rebound for an 81-76 lead at the 2:48 mark. The final score was 87-83. The Pioneers then traveled to Kentucky on Saturday to play against Brescia University in an RSC matchup. Point Park brought home the win back to Pittsburgh 94-68. At the half, Point Park was ahead by 14 points with a score of 43-29. Point Park had 3 players over 20 points. Jalen Stamps with the 20, 10 assists, and 8 rebounds. Joe Valerie had a team high of 25 points and 9 rebounds, and Jameson Smith scored 22 points. Key highlights consisted of Jags Jawar making 5 for 5 from the field and 4 free throws for 14 points. He also got 9 rebounds and blocked 5 shots. The final score was 94-68. Congratulations to the men's team for getting the number 18 spot on the NAIA Top 25 Hoops report. This is the first time PPU has made it to the Top 25. Point Park is tied for the most wins with 4 other teams in the NAIA. These teams include Grace, Cumberlands, Tennessee Southern, and Florida College. Point Park has the 5th-ranked scoring offense in the country at 91.5 PPG, including forward Joe Valerie, point guard Jalen Stamps, and guards Jameson Smith and Nate Van. Defensively, Point Park is 6th in the NAIA in field goal defense at 38.2. PPU is 4th in the nation for blocks per game at 5.1. Rebounding is led by Valerie, Jawar, Fisher, and Stowe. Also, congratulations to Joe Valerie for being named RSC Men's Basketball Player of the Week. And lastly, a final congratulations to Joe Valerie and Jalen Stamps for making the Bevo Francis Top 100 watch list for the best players in small college basketball, which is right below Division I. Point Park is 1 out of 10 schools in the nation with 2 players on the list. Again, congratulations. It is a very well-deserved title. Point Park's next matchup was supposed to be against Bryan Stratton Rochester this past Monday on MLK Day, but due to the snow and the New York travel ban, they were not able to make it. The Pioneers' next game is this Saturday against IU East at CCAC Allegheny with tip-off at 3 p.m. Good luck, boys. Now, switching gears over to the Point Park women's basketball team, as they have had a busy and winning season so far. The Pioneers are 12-4 overall and have 5 wins and 2 losses in the RSC. This past week, Point Park played a 2-game road stretch against Oakland City and Brescia University. Last Thursday, the Pioneers took an unfortunate loss against Oakland City, 72-66. Key highlights of the game were Gabby Legister with 20 points and 10 rebounds, Jillian Piccolino with 15 points and 4 made three-pointers, Fatim Sardano with 13 points, and Emma Pavlik scoring 12 points. However, in their second matchup on the road against Brescia University, the Pioneers took the win back to Pittsburgh 69-60. Key highlights of the game were Gabby Legister scoring 21 points and getting 14 rebounds. This was Legister's second game in a row with 20 points. Jillian Piccolino got 17 points and 8 rebounds, and Emma Pavlik got 12 points. Also, Ari Bleda racked up 8 assists to lead Point Park with passing. Overall, the Pioneers had 18 assists on 23 made baskets and shot 43% from the field. The final score was 69-60. The Pioneers' next game is this Saturday against IU East for another RSC matchup. Tip-off is at 1 p.m. Make sure to go out and support the men's and women's teams as they take on the Red Wolves at CCAC Allegheny. After the break, we're back with a recap on the track team's first meet of the semester this past weekend. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now let's send things over to Gabe Ebersol to recap the track team's first indoor meet of the semester. Gabe?
Thanks, Nat. Point Park's men and women's indoor track and field teams competed in their first meet of the semester on Saturday at the Marshall University Alumni Classic, an NCAA Division I meet. Starting with the men's team, the Pioneers won 6 events and took 19 top 10 placements. Freshman jumper and sprinter Akeem Mustafa won both the long and high jump events. Mustafa set the school record in the long jump with a leap of 7.26 meters and won the high jump with a height of 1.9 meters. Ramira Ulunke won the 800 meters, running a time of 1 minute, 56.3 seconds. That was within 1 second of qualifying for the NAIA national meet for the junior from Bolivia. Juan Barrera won the 400 meter event with a time of 50.35 seconds, just 0.05 of a second off of the indoor PR for the junior. Elijah James won the 600 event with a time of 1:22.27. The junior is one of 4 top 10s in the event for Point Park, with Toby Wright placing 3rd, Wesley Thrower placing 4th, Emmanuel Alcapoli placing 6th, all within 8 seconds of James's first place finish. Siobhan Fletcher continued his strong performances in the weight throw with a distance of 16.08 meters, taking first place Saturday. Damir Lomax had a busy day, competed in 5 events and earning 4 top 10s on his own. He placed 4th in the 200 meters, made finals, and placed 7th in the 60-meter hurdles, was just outside of the finals in the 60-meter dash with a time of 7.11 seconds, placing 10th, and also led off the Pioneers 4x4 relay team that took 3rd. Yannick Wendelbaum pulled in another top 10, placing 9th in the 3K with a time of 8 minutes and 53.62 seconds. Point Park's next meet is Saturday, January 12th at Ashland, Ohio University Invitational NC Division II meet. Moving to the women's team, the Pioneers posted 11 finishers in the top 10 throughout the day. The 4x400 relay had the highest placement for the Pioneers on the day. The team of Natalia Hillen, Michaela Rice, Jana Schmid, and Diamond Rush put forth a time of 4 minutes, 12.56 seconds, placing second. That was behind only host Marshall from NCAA Division I and was just in front of the two teams from West Virginia, Wiseland, and NCAA Squad 2 from the MEC. Natalia Hillen ran 5 events and had 4 top 10 finishes. In addition to being on the runner-up 4x400 relay, Natalia made the finals and placed 6th in the 60-meter hurdles with a time of 9.15 seconds, just 1/100th of a second away from her PR and the school record. Hillen also placed 6th in the high jump, getting a personal best of 1.54 meters and 10th in the 200 meters at 27.28 seconds. Her 5th event was an 11th place finish in the 60-meter dash at 8.17 seconds. Jana Schmid returned to the track and placed 5th in the 600 meter with a time of 1 minute and 47 seconds. Cassandra O'Connor ran a 1:48 and Kylie Nagy 2:15 also finished in the top 10, placing 7th and 10th respectively. Eva Romer placed 6th in the long jump with 5.04 meters. Romer also led the Pioneers in the triple jump, taking 7th with a career best of 10.29 meters. Olivia Hare ran the 3K meters for the Point Park, with the freshman from England taking a time of 11:19 for the 13th place in the first track race of her collegiate career. Point Park will be in action again on Saturday, January 20th at Ashland University Invitational, an NCAA Division II meet in Ohio.
Thanks, Gabe. After the break, we hear about the rest of the sports world. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Now I'll be sending things over to Mike Hodgetts for all things locally. Mike?
Thanks, Nat. Sidney Crosby scores twice as the Penguins snapped the Seattle Kraken's 9-game winning streak in a 3-0 victory on Monday. Monday's game was originally scheduled for a 6 p.m. start. However, being that the Steelers and Bills playoff matchup was moved to Monday, as well as due to inclement weather, the NHL opted to move the game to a 1 o'clock start time. The Kraken came in right in a month of occasionally spectacular play that's vaulted them into the thick of the playoff chase in the loaded Western Conference as the season reaches its midpoint. Playing the 4th game of a 6-game East Coast road swing and forced to go without 3 regulars in defenseman Vince Dunn, setter Matty Beniers, and forward Andrei Burakovsky, Seattle mustered little against Jarry and a Pittsburgh team smartened after consecutive overtime losses to Vancouver and Carolina. Crosby scored twice to move within one of Hall of Famer Mark Recchi for 21st on the all-time goals listed as the Penguins ended Seattle's franchise record 9-game winning streak with a 3-0 win on Monday. Tristan Jarry turned aside all 22 shots he faced for his 5th shutout of the season as Pittsburgh handed Seattle its first loss of any kind since December 18th and its first loss in regulation since December 10th. Pittsburgh's next game will be this Saturday against Vegas at 10 o'clock Eastern Time start. In Pitt basketball news, the Panthers return after 1 week of rest following its loss to number 11 ranked Duke at home. The Panthers are in need of a win, sitting at 10-6 on the season and just 1-4 in conference play so far. However, the Orange won't be an easy victory. Pitt lost to Syracuse back on December 30th, 81-73, blowing a double-digit lead to Adrian Autry's squad. In that matchup, Pitt turned the ball over a season-high 15 times against Syracuse. The Panthers also just hit 46 of their free throw attempts in the loss, making 11 of their 24 attempts off the bench. Quadra Copeland led the Orange on a ferocious comeback, getting to the free throw line 15 times in the win for Syracuse. The game is scheduled for a 7 o'clock start time, with Pitt going on the road for a 3-game road trip in which they will have a rematch with Duke on Saturday. In Pitt football news, University of Pittsburgh legend Larry Fitzgerald is set to be inducted in the College Football Hall of Fame. Fitzgerald will go into the College Football Hall of Fame as a member of the 2024 class. The National Football Foundation announced this last Monday. The class of 2024 will be inducted on December 10th in Las Vegas. Fitzgerald was a star wide receiver at Pitt during his 2 seasons on campus in 2002 and 2003. In 26 career games, he tallied 161 catches for 2,677 yards and 34 touchdowns, which is a school record. In 2003, Fitzgerald was named the Walter Camp Player of the Year, won the Biletnikoff Award as college football's best receiver, and was a first-team All-American selection. He had 92 catches for 1,672 yards and 22 touchdowns that season. Fitzgerald was selected for the College Football Hall of Fame in his first year of eligibility. 24 other Pitt players are in the Hall of Fame, and the rest of the 2024 class includes former NFL Pro Bowlers and Hall of Famers such as Randy Moss, Julius Peppers, and Alex Smith. With all that in mind, let's hear from Steeler fan 7 himself, John Mayer, as he recaps the Steelers' final game of the season in Buffalo. John?
Thanks, Mike. The Pittsburgh Steelers 2023 season has officially come to an end. The Pittsburgh Steelers fell in the wild card round on the road in Buffalo to the Bills by a score of 31-17. The Steelers were without their best player in this one, and likely the 2023 NFL Defensive Player of the Year and the 2023 sack leader, TJ Watt, as he ended up missing this contest with the knee injury he suffered in last week's win over the Ravens. 2 early giveaways from the Pittsburgh offense via George Pickens' fumble and a Mason Rudolph interception helped put the Pittsburgh Steelers in an early hole as they quickly ended up trailing 21-0 in Buffalo. They rallied late behind 2 Mason Rudolph touchdown passes to Deontay Johnson and Calvin Austin, but ultimately they could not complete the comeback as they fell to the Bills by 14 points, 31-17, effectively ending their season. And as Pittsburgh heads into the offseason, there's a lot of uncertainty they'll have to deal with at multiple positions, including quarterback, with the recently benched 2022 first-rounder Kenny Pickett and the soon-to-be free agent Mason Rudolph. In other news at head coach, multiple NFL insiders such as Jay Glazer and Adam Schefter are saying Mike Tomlin could be taking some time off. However, Coach T will be back for next season. Meanwhile, some in the fan base would like to see Tomlin either traded or fired as he heads into the final year of his contract after a 7th straight season without a playoff win. When asked about his contract following the wild card loss to Buffalo, Tomlin stormed off the podium, leaving Steelers fans across the world wondering what the future Canton-bound head coach's next move will be. It turns out he will be back. That's all for Steelers news this year. Make sure to follow @SteelerFan7 to stay regularly updated on all things Steelers news throughout the offseason. Now let's hear from Matt Palangi about the rest of the sports world. Matt?
Thanks, John. Here we are at the home stretch of the NFL season. The playoffs are here, and the wildcard round did not disappoint, unless you are a fan of some of these teams. The first game of the week was between the Browns and the Texans. The Texans, who are led by rookie C.J. Stroud, came out firing, and this game was a shootout early. The Browns had an early 14-10 lead, but after 2 costly pick sixes from the veteran champ Joe Flacco, the Texans would score 35 unanswered to win 45-14. On Saturday night, it was cold in Kansas City, where the Chiefs would host the Dolphins. The Dolphins' offense could not keep up, and the Chiefs would cruise to a 26-7 win. To start the Sunday games, we got the undefeated at-home Dallas Cowboys against the Green Bay Packers. With the Packers being the youngest team in the playoffs and the 7th seed, this matchup looked difficult. However, the matchup looked more difficult for the Cowboys, who wouldn't even sniff a stop whatsoever, giving up 48 points, and the final score of 48-32 does not even tell the full story of how badly the Packers dominated this game. The game of the wild card round, Stafford's homecoming to Detroit. The first half was extremely entertaining, as both teams would score back and forth, with the Rams relying heavily on historical wide receiver Puka Nacua. Puka would go for 181 yards and a touchdown, but this wouldn't be enough, as Jared Goff would throw 22 completions and only 27 attempts in a tight 24-23 win. Monday brought us the Steelers vs. Bills and Bucks vs. Eagles. With Steelers Fan 7 giving us the Steelers report, let's look at the Eagles game. The Eagles came out slow, as they have struggled to pull away in any game this year. 3 big touchdowns from Baker Mayfield led to a dominant 32-9 win, this win being the largest in all of the wild card round. The Bucs will play the Lions in the next round, the Niners will host the Packers. In the AFC, the Bills will host the Chiefs, and the Ravens will host Houston. Who do you guys think will win? We will wait and see what happens this weekend. Since we have been gone, the college football season has crowned a champ. Alabama would lose to Michigan in a fantastic first-round matchup, while Washington's offense would light up Texas in their victory. Michigan would play Washington in the national championship match, where the Wolverines were to get an early but close lead. After some costly Michael Penix mistakes, Michigan would hoist the championship trophy. Let's look at some updated NCAA basketball standings as the season soon hits March. Reigning champions UConn currently sit at the top, closely followed by Purdue, who had a historical loss last year. Kansas and UNC round out the top 4 for the season so far. With standings very neck and neck, keep an eye out and get ready to make those brackets. Let's skate over to the NHL and finish with these updates and standings. Connor Bedard was the first overall pick for the 2023-24 season and unfortunately is projected to be out for 5 to 7 more weeks with a broken jaw. The President's Trophy winner from last season and former first-round exit, the Boston Bruins, yet again dominate the Atlantic side of the Eastern Conference, followed by last year's runner-up, the Florida Panthers. In the Metropolitan, the New York Rangers remain on the top of the standings. Canada is on top in the Western Conference as Winnipeg leads the Central and Vancouver is leading the Pacific. With all that being said, that is all for me and the rest of us. Back to you at the desk, Nat.
Thanks, Matt. After the break, we discuss the chaotic first week of the NFL playoffs. Stay tuned.
Take them cue and open their mics.
They mark the 1-year anniversary of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette strike.
Point Park University just hosted a campus-wide meeting.
Plans for the rapid transit bus line are not set to conclude until 2025.
Welcome back to Case of the Week. This week I'm joined by Mike, Gabe, and Ryan, and we're here to discuss the wild card results from this past weekend and what surprised us. So there was a lot that obviously went down. Browns versus Texans, Dolphins versus Chiefs, Packers versus Cowboys, Rams versus Lions, Steelers versus the Bills, and the Eagles versus the Buccaneers. So first starting with Mike, what kind of surprised you the most out of all these games?
Well, I don't want to start in a negative fashion, but I guess I will. The teams that surprised me in a disappointing way were definitely the Browns and the Cowboys. And to start off with the Browns, for a team that had so many injuries, they were riding pretty high on their defense throughout the majority of their season. And we're talking about a defense that was #1 in total yards allowed and #1 in passing yards allowed. So to go into Houston, I get it, hostile environment. You let C.J. Stroud carve you up for almost 400 total yards of offense in that game. And you force Joe Flacco to try to carry the game, a turnover machine like him, to throw back-to-back interceptions and set you guys up for failure. So other than that, for the Browns, that's all I have to say for them. They also could not get a running game going as Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt combined for 43 total yards of the game. So that was my disappointing pick. Also, unfortunately, the Cowboys, they got upset by the 7th seed. Yes, it's never been done in history that a 7th seed has beaten a higher seed or won a game in the playoffs. But, Dak Prescott, I don't think they got a first down the entire first quarter, if any, throughout that first quarter. And another thing, they got a lot of garbage yards, but they could not get anything going. They let Jordan Love carve them up. They were in top 5 in total yards on defense and passing yards allowed on defense. And their top player, Micah Parsons, Defensive Player of the Year, he had 1 tackle the entire game. He was absolutely schemed out, and the Packers held up their end, and they were able to put 41 points of offense with the exception of the pick 6 to make it 48. So,
Gabe, after all of that.
A lot of great points. I agree with a lot of what you said. I'm also going to add in the Miami Dolphins as a disappointing team. Granted, we know they're on the road, freezing cold game in Kansas City. But when you're a generational offense, or you're labeled as one with a mastermind offensive coordinator, 7 points in a playoff game doesn't cut it, no matter the circumstances. That's how I see it. Tyreek Hill got loose for one big play. Other than that, he was held pretty well in check. The run game couldn't get it going. Tua looked terrible, like to put it point blank. He didn't look good at all. We know historically he hasn't looked good in cold weather, but this was just another level of they were out of the game very quickly. I mean, in 7 points, like he couldn't even get garbage time going. So for just 60 minutes of underwhelming offensive football from the Miami Dolphins, and you had mid 20 points from the defense. That's what you're almost expecting though, from a Chiefs offense in the playoffs. The defense didn't necessarily win you that game, but they held it right around where you thought you were going to be probably, and the Dolphins just didn't deliver on offense, and that's just disappointing after the way they've been labeled throughout this season and their offense has rolled.
So I'm going to switch it up and go on the surprises in good manner. They're crying we don't mention Packers. Again, first time ever a 7th seed upset at a 2nd seed team. Jordan Love looked amazing, the best he's looked all year. Throwing the back foot off to the fade, off to his receivers. I'm going to say this receiving core looked the best they looked all year. Again, I know they're the first game all year they've been healthy with all their starters. And then the run game, I'm just want to say, like, Jones looked like the best he did all year, the 3 touchdowns. I mean, again, it's nice that he played in his home state. That's always a boost for anybody, and against the Cowboys of all teams. But I just want to say the Packers look great this year, this game, and then the Chiefs, too. Look, everyone was down on the Chiefs because of the receiving core, because of the defense, wasn't looking as good. But again, defense shut down a historic offense. The defense pressured Tua. Tua didn't look comfortable at all the entire game. But I was going to stay on the surprise side. Like these two teams looked like the best teams in the playoffs in this wild card round.
I do want to build off what you said about the Green Bay Packers. We do need to give them props because you can't find any fault in their game because they didn't give up points until the game was basically out of hand. They scored, they walked down and got 7, basically their first 4 possessions. They were putting points on the board, moving the ball at ease, run, pass, got the ball down the field. 3 touchdowns passing, 3 touchdowns on the ground. You can't have any more balance than that. They delivered on all points, so they came in ready and they executed.
And I also want to bounce off that for a team coming into a hostile environment for a Cowboys team that almost hasn't lost at home in almost 2 years. The fact that they were able to put up that much offensive yards and scores just tells you how much this Packers team had a turnaround under Matt LaFleur with all the pieces they left and dealing with all that cap issue with Rodgers leaving, Devontae Adams leaving. They were able to get it done. And going into this playoffs, it's a win-win because not a lot of people expected the Packers to get into this spot or position, and especially coming into the season. A lot of people picked them to be the bottom dweller of the division, and they were able to have a respectable record. And not a lot of people thought they were going to get into the playoffs at the end of the season, and yet they did. And they go into Dallas and they win in Dallas, but it's definitely going to be a daunting task going into San Fran, and if they somehow win that, facing either Detroit or Tampa. But I also want to build off that and go to Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You guys got to show Baker Mayfield some love. He had a great game against the Eagles, and we get it. The Eagles had a lot of things going on to close out that season. They finished 1-6 to close it out, but Baker Mayfield, he went 22 for 36, over 300 yards and 3 scores. So he was just able to get it done for this season. A lot of people also picked Tampa Bay to be a top 3 worst team in the NFL, and they get it done. They had some big surprises. Yaya Diaby, he could be a defensive rookie of the year, 7 sacks, and Kalijah Cansey, the native from Pitt, also getting it done. So got to show Tampa Bay some love as well.
If we're going to share love, I want to share love to Michigan as well. I mean, not Michigan, Detroit. But, everyone, again, Jared Goff coming in. No one was saying Jared Goff was going to be good again this year because, Jared Goff usually has one good year, and then he looks like normal Jared Goff afterwards. But this year, Jared Goff looks good. That run game looks the best it's looked all year. And then I just want to say St. Brown's having a year that everyone said he should have had a couple years ago, but now he's having it now. And then just on the defense side, Ball Hutchinson, he looked like he could be a defensive player of the year down the road. I just want to these teams that everyone says aren't going to be good these years look amazing this year.
I want to ask you guys about the Steelers versus the Bills. So just one thing that you have to say, what was kind of surprising about this game, or what kind of disappointments, Gabe?
If I want to be 100% honest, what surprised me the most about the game was that the Steelers found a way to claw back into it, because after they went down 21-0, it just looked like they were going to get the doors blown off of them. And when they came out, they scored that quick 7, they got a stop, and then they put up a field goal. It looked like it was going to be a game again.
Yeah.
And for them to come back out in that, on the road in that situation, and they were outclassed very badly. And just for them to have that fight and resilience, while there was definitely some negatives on the day, I think that it should have, honestly, it was a big positive for just the bounce back of that team.
And once the Bills got the last touchdown, I mean, it was kind of over at that point. I mean, we wanted to stay hopeful, but there's only so much that you can do, obviously, watching the game.
Yeah, and for Mason Rudolph, he had a pretty respectable day, 229 yards, 2 touchdowns, even though he threw that pick. What made me more upset was that was a very winnable game for the Steelers. The fact that they had 2 turnovers, which led to a 10-point swing for the Bills, throwing that pick in the end zone and also fumbling with George Pickens. They also had some breaks that went their way with Pat Freiermuth almost losing that fumble. They had a lot of opportunities that they left on the table that they could have capitalized on. And again, that goes back to the players, the coaching staff, not getting them prepared to go into Buffalo. I get it, the game was postponed, but you got to be ready for that. Yeah. Najee Harris and Jalen Warren was held in check throughout that entire game, and especially down at the goal line, at the 4-yard line, you run empty set, and you don't even give a chance to give one of your 1-2 punch players and Harris or Warren a chance. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have to wrap it up, but real quick, we have a couple games coming up for the divisional round: Texans versus Ravens, Packers versus 49ers, Buccaneers versus Lions, and Chiefs versus Bills. So real quick, in one sentence, Ryan, what do you think is going to happen?
I think we're going to see a Ravens in the AFC Championship. Houston's just too injured right now. They have receivers out. They're on their 3rd and 4th string receivers. And then on the NFC side, I think we're going to see a San Francisco and Detroit Lion NFC Championship matchup.
Gabe?
I'm also going to go with the same NFC matchup. I think it's San Francisco and Detroit are the best 2 teams right now out of the NFC. I do think Baltimore is just going to best Houston. I think it's going to be a lot closer of a game than people expect, because the way that Baltimore is built is really the type of team that the Texans have played very well against this year, which is just a strong, dominant defensive team but they can force turnovers off of that Ravens, and they can outclass them in the turnover battle. So I think that'll be a close game. And I see them meeting in the AFC Championship. They'll probably play. I think they're going to play the Chiefs. I think that the Chiefs will beat the Bills, even on the road.
I know it's they always make their way.
I know. Even though it's Mahomes' first away game, he's been 29-11 on the road throughout his career. I don't think he'll have any problems going in there. And this is the best defense he's ever had in the playoffs in his career. So I think even the lack of receivers, I'm going to count on Travis Kelce to bust out of that rut, and they're going to get it done one way or another.
And Mike, one last sentence.
Yeah, and I agree with Gabe on that. I believe the Ravens and Texans is going to be a good game. I think that Ravens are going to edge it out. And for the Bills, I think they are going to get it done and get their revenge game at home against the Chiefs. However, NFC, I like Tampa Bay to upset Detroit. I think Detroit was pretty lackluster in the second half against the Rams, and I think Tampa's riding high with all the offensive pieces they have. And obviously, I think the Niners should roll past the Packers. But hey, you never know. It's the NFL playoffs.
True. Well, thank you guys.
I do agree with you too about the Bills. I forgot to mention I want the Bills to be in there as well. Sorry.
Cool. Thank you guys. Yeah. That's all the time that we have for this week. Be sure to join us next week at the same Pioneer time, the same Pioneer channel, and the same Pioneer Sideline.